Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Tonight I am playing a game called Cold Waters. It's a fairly recent release made by a company called Killerfish Games. They are responsible for making what has been my absolute favorite mobile game of all time, which is called Atlantic Fleet. And it's a turn-based World War II Battle of the Atlantic simulator. They have stepped into a new world for them. They previously had released a similar game to Atlantic Fleet, creatively enough, called Pacific Fleet, and it was just kind of a series of one-off battles, and it had a little bit of a progression system to it. And then in Atlantic Fleet, they added a whole strategic Battle of the Atlantic management layer where you had to buy and sell units. They did port this to PC quite effectively. But this is a Cold War era submarine simulator. You can only drive subs at this phase. I've heard things from the developers saying they may expand that in the future. But it is fully real time, and it's currently one of my new obsessions. I've always loved submarine simulators. Not very many of them have actually come out. And this one, it's got a lot of concessions made for playability, which I like. It doesn't necessarily make it accessible because it is still quite complex. And this is actually a campaign mission, and I'm doing this specifically to show off something that isn't particularly well documented yet. You kind of have to dig to find information on it, and that is specifically employment of Tomahawk Land Attack Cruise Missiles. I'm going to actually do a full mission playthrough of this just to kind of show a lot of what goes on in the game. This mission I can demonstrate a whole lot of concepts in. You'll notice I'm in very shallow water, and if I go to the tactical map, I'm actually along the coastline of northern Russia. My mission is to launch cruise missiles at a naval base, which is right here. And basically, just to get the tutorial section for the TLAMS out of the way, TLAM is Tomahawk Land Attack Missile. This is what you need to aim for. This is what they call the initial point. If you've played a lot of flight simulators, or if just for knowledge's sake, the Tomahawk cruise missile is a terrain-guided missile in some of the models are. And so by pitching your missile here, it basically takes a snapshot of the... it's all pre-programmed. It takes a snapshot of the surrounding area and kind of guides itself in on target. Again, that's not really particularly well explained in the documentation, so I just want to cover this, but also kind of show off hunting and evasion techniques that'll kind of get me to where I'm going. First step is I have five hostile contacts. And you can see the symbology's changing. That's my sonar operator getting a better track on these things, but I don't have class names. And so I'm going to select Contact Sierra 1, which is this guy here, and bring up my signature page. And this is the passive sonar array, and you can kind of see there's all these different pre-programmed profiles, and your crew will automatically designate ships for you, but you can actually speed along your targeting process by manually doing it. So, still selecting Sierra 1, you can kind of see these bright lines in this waterfall display, kind of looks like the Matrix. This is kind of representative of flow noise, and this is what a real waterfall display looks like. I want to start right now by saying I have never been in the Navy. But I've read enough, and I've just had that interest in submarines enough that I'm kind of sort of familiar with the systems, but I have forgotten so much about submarine warfare tactics that it's been a kind of brutal learning curve to get back into this. But basically, this is the signal my sonar is seeing when I select Sierra 1. And so I just want to tap through. Oh, and they got impatient, and my crew categorized it for me. So I'm going to very quickly pick Sierra 5 because it looks like it's my softest contact. And I've played this mission before, so I'm fairly certain these are all surface contacts. So I basically just click through these until I find the signature that matches this. And that is a pretty good match for the Poltava merchant vessel. And by clicking the center, it'll automatically classify your contact. And when the contact is classified, you see your targeting solution down here in this this panel right here in the data page is all your target. This is your own ship. My current course is 180 degrees directly due south. I'm moving at 5 knots, which is the perfect speed for the towed sonar array. I'm at 50 feet, which is periscope, the very lower limit of periscope depth. I have no input on my rudder or bow planes, and my ballast is all neutral. But to get back to where I was, in targeting information, it is currently bearing 195 from my current location. It is currently sailing on a course of 352, which is almost directly north, and it is 11,700 yards away from me. And I only have a 73% firm targeting solution on this vessel at this time. If I zoom in, you can kind of see on the tactical display kind of what's going on around here. I could put my radar mast up here, and since these are all surface contacts, it would reveal, I would get a 95% targeting solution on all these guys, but that electronic emissions would give me away pretty quickly. So I'm going to try to do as much of this with sonar as possible. And while I love the Harpoon cruise missile, it is one of the funnest things to employ in this game, I'm going to try to stay stealthy and hit these guys with Mark 48 torpedoes in passive mode. I'm not certain if these are the AdCat model or not, for people who know what that means. I'm going to try to stay out of some serious detail on this, just because I'm going to approach it more from a gameplay perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and classify Sierra 3. I pressed the T key to cycle through those. Oh, I had it. Geez, come on. Contact, Sierra 3. I think I already know what this thing's class is, because this is a very, the Riga has a very distinct sound profile with these two double bars. There's one other ship, I think, one other vessel in the entire game that has kind of that match. You see all my bars line up, so I'm fairly certain this is a Riga. I've got a 70% targeting solution on it. My crew has not classified it yet, but I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's a Riga. And so you see I can ignore the Poltava because it's a merchant vessel and is no threat to me. I do want to sink it to get merchant tonnage, but every one of these vessels carries anti-submarine weaponry that could severely mess up my day. And currently I'm targeting, you arrive at a targeting solution via a method called target motion analysis. And the easiest way to really do that is you kind of follow real world tactics. You see I've been keeping this very constant bearing, relying on the relative motion of my ship, my boat, sorry, I have to use correct terminology there at least. And just moving in a straight line will get you a targeting solution, but you can speed the process up a little by changing direction. And I just input full left rudder. I'm going to change my bearing by about 30 degrees. And just by kind of changing the direction, the relative direction to the target, it allows you to the sonar crew to triangulate their location, and you can get a much firmer, much faster firing solution. So once you have at least an 85% or above targeting solution, you get this predictive, this is basically a lead indicator to show where the target will be when your given weapon will arrive, which is pretty useful. Being on the surface and these being surface contact ships, I'm going to go ahead and set some parameters on my torpedoes. This arrow indicator I've got my mouse over right now, that is the search mode once the torpedo activates. I'm going to go ahead and put all of these into a circular search mode because going after surface vessels in shallow water, excuse me, if they happen to overshoot, they'll go into a 360-degree turn until they reacquire the target to re-engage. Torpedoes can run for a good long time, so they don't necessarily, they have a re-attack capability that, say, an air-to-air missile won't have. Currently, you can see I've got 95% firing solutions on everybody around me, including this merchant vessel. So what I am going to do is I'm going to pick the closest target here. Going to set, and the torpedo is currently set to passive mode. I'm not going to get into that because this whole episode is more about the Tomahawk Land Attack Cruise Missiles and certain evasion techniques. Because I'm fairly certain once I start taking these guys out, I will begin to, I will take fire. And I'm going to prioritize the Grisha 3 down here. Because at the further distance, I'm going to try to get time on target on all these guys by staggering my launches. So I'm going to go ahead and change the scale here, and mouse down. And I'm going to set this activation just slightly short of where that thing is, so it can get a pretty good idea of where the target is, identify it, and then home in before it's right on top of it. So we're going to fire two, and the orientation of the tubes, you have the two stacked here on the left and the two stacked here on the right. That matches the orientation on your sub. That could be important by... I'm actually firing the wrong tube if I want to do this correctly. So I'm going to back out of that. I'm going to select the tubes on the right side of my ship because you see coming off the nose there, he's off my right. So I'm going to pick my starboard side torpedoes to launch at these guys. I use a port side torpedo and probably a reload on this. Oh, and I lost contact with the Riga. I think he slowed down. Still get a 65% track on him. I'm actually going to prioritize both these guys now that I think of it. Oh, the Poltava has gotten between me and the Riga, and its loud engines are actually masking the Riga from me. If I go into the more interesting view, see we've got that surface vessel right there. And if I select it, I can actually go get it. Not the most highly detailed models ever, but I think they look really nice. And nighttime really doesn't do the water graphics on this game justice, especially when you're in heavy swells in a storm. It looks gorgeous. And just looking at the deck of this thing, it's got a bunch of military trucks on it, so that's a valid military target. All targets you will engage in the game are valid. They don't have any neutrals that you can mistakenly engage. So rules of warfare and all that. But again, it doesn't carry torpedoes or missiles or anything that can hit me, so I'm going to ignore him for now. And I'm going to go ahead and wait for him to pass so I can reacquire the Riga. My first choice for engaging a lot of these guys would be to toss harpoon missiles at them as quickly as I could, but when you do that, it really gives away your position, and I will have hostile aircraft all over me, which I'm probably going to have them all over me anyway. Although, you know what? I can always reload this if it goes badly, and I'm planning on getting shot at anyway, so let's go ahead and show off the harpoon. Because it is just literally that fun to fly. And in fact, I'm going to load a port tube with a harpoon. So this guy's going to get a Mark 48 ad cap thrown at him, and then these three are going to have harpoons tossed their way. I think I have just enough range for this for the harpoon to activate on this guy. And wait for my tubes to reload. And the great thing is this guy is masking this guy from me, but it's also masking me from him. And he's pounding away. Those yellow lines are him pounding away with his active sonar. And one of the more interesting ways of targeting the using the harpoon defensively is you can actually use these tracks of active sonar to give yourself a very quick and dirty firing solution if it's a distant enough target. Alright, all tubes loaded. Grisha has changed direction, and I'm actually going to wait for this guy to fire. I'm going to set this to minimum 8,000 yards. This does have minimum range. Because I don't have a solid firing solution on him, but the sonar track, his active sonar will give away his bearing. And the active radar or the radar detection on the harpoon will home in on him once it goes active. There we go. So firing at Riga. And selecting Grisha. And selecting Poti. There's the torpedo leaving 2. Cruise missiles on their way. Really scared this guy. You can see he's in a severely hard turn. See, just saw 3 missiles pop up out of nowhere. This is the one that has the highest probability of missing. Oh, but it just acquired the target. And I am being shot at. Time to go evasive. Be making a whole lot of noise here. And I try to keep torpedoes on my tail. And I try to use their noisemaker go-around capability against them. See, torpedo, I got 2 on me now. I'm going to put them as close to my tail as I can get them to. I'm assuming these were helicopter drops. Go ahead and drop a noisemaker. Torpedo's still on his way. I have successfully broken contact with all 3 torpedoes, but they will reacquire me. room to maneuver. Normally, standard procedure would be to use a lot of depth changes to try and lose these guys, but that is not going to be an option here. So I'm just going to run away from them at flank speed. I'm making a ton of noise. But I really can't do anything about that. Just keep dropping noisemakers in their paths, and you see when they split off, they're going into their decoy go-around mode. And I just want to try to run these things out of fuel as much as I can. And I may end up getting hit because I just do not have enough room to maneuver. I'll try to really hug the bottom here, just to get some extra room. Looks like I've got a series of different go-around profiles on these torpedoes. Looks like I've got two that have been set to go around, and then one that is set to dive through. Using a combination of what they call knuckle, which is turning hard enough to put a disturbance in the water that the torpedo will read as a valid target. I have a feeling this one on my left, yep, it is the first to require me. Oh, and bottom of the harbor's coming up on me. And if you pay attention to which way the torpedoes, although I believe these modern jobs, they actually will, they vary, they don't just go in one direction. I am just trying to outmaneuver these as much as possible. Oh, tail strike. Bad. Bad. Damage control. Tell my DC teams to work on that. It's like the slowest jet fighter dogfight you'll ever see. And I think I'm in a world of trouble here. Because with my engine damaged, I almost pulled this off too. Gotta keep trying to get him to pass me by. Keep him going after that noisemaker. If I can get my engines back online. Oh no. Hull. Smacked the bottom of the rear of the ship off the ocean bottom, I probably could have got away with that. But you can see, it looks like I got 4 good kills. torpedo while I find this guy, but it was worth it, because he was well within the minimum range of the harpoon. And I have got to keep this thing from going too deep, or else flooding will keep me from rising, and that's a whole world of hurt I don't want to be in. And the reason why I survived that is those were small anti-submarine warfare ASW torpedoes. Those were not like the big jobs that a sub would actually shoot at me. So that was pretty much the only thing that saved me there. I'm going to fix my pumps first, because it looks like the towed array sonar is going to fix itself. And I want to be able to pump the water out. Don't want to do that. That makes a lot of noise, makes me very easy to pick up. I'm going to try to keep it above 100 feet. That's usually a pretty good depth for controlling my flooding without having to blow ballast. An emergency blow is not something you want to have to do in the course of a mission. Those choppers are just all over me. But I think they have expended all their torpedoes. If not, I'm going to do my best to evade them. Alright. Now I'm going to hurry along the pumping this water out. But as I was saying, ASW torpedoes, the type that are typically launched by helicopters and aircraft, have very small warheads because just that's a necessity of the platform that is dropping them. They have to be lightweight so they can be carried by an aircraft without affecting the performance of that aircraft in a overly negative manner. Okay, gonna go ahead and keep putting some more ballast into it. It's like trimming an aircraft at this stage. Of that. And the game is on again. Drop the noisemaker in this thing's path. I'm going to beat feet away from him. And again, because of the flooding issue, I've got to try and stay above probably 100 feet, otherwise I'm going to start taking on water, and then that's going to be yet another thing I've got to measure. I've got to handle. It is very difficult to evade torpedoes in shallow water like this. Torpedo has acquired me. Which is not quite a lock, because it's not nearly as firm as an aircraft, as an air-launched missile lock. Yes, I'm fairly certain everybody in a 1,000-mile radius knows exactly where I am. And as I turn, I want to try to keep this thing on my stern, because that's kind of the way to maximize my distance between it. And what I'm basically doing by combining these sprints and these turns is when it dives off to the side, it's not tracking me, and by keeping my tail pointed at it, I'm putting maximum distance between me and it, and so it just has to make that distance up again. and water's so dense that a torpedo is it's not like an air-launched missile, unless you're like in a Blackbird or something. You do have the ability to exhaust it, and you can do the same with an air-launched missile, actually, but you just basically want to keep as much, you want to make the torpedo waste as much fuel and energy tracking you as you can. And it typically involves a lot of depth changes, but I just don't have the room to maneuver here in this shallow harbor. So I have to settle for lateral evasion. Which, to be totally honest, I shouldn't have gotten fancy with the vertical evasion and should have just kept it on the lateral plane. And I'm being herded straight into two surface contacts I cannot see. Actually playing with there's an option to hide low targeting solution contacts. I've turned that off just to get used to the game at this phase. I do not want to be heading closer to those guys. Going to keep running from this torpedo until I expend its fuel, which, as you have most undoubtedly seen by now, it has quite a supply. Let's see just how many. I have 8 noisemakers still on board. I'm going to continue to spoof this via hard turns. Another reason to keep your stern pointed directly at the torpedo is that ensures that when you create a knuckle in the water and when you drop a noisemaker, it is in the seeker cone. This one is consistently going left, or going right, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it backwards. I'm actually going to load a moss decoy and try to get something to chase that. I have weapon speed and ranges and distances all set to 1-to-1 as close to simulation as I can, which is one of the reasons why this is taking so long. That's why I decided to, in very layman's terms, cover the TLAM targeting. Once I get to a clear spot, I will actually show how they operate, whether they sink me or not, because I can always replay this mission. And actually, I'm having a very evil idea. I'm going to charge straight in on these guys with that enemy torpedo right on my tail. Or at least I was. But finally, it runs out of fuel and explodes. In real life, they don't explode. Only in movies and this game. And I'm going to go ahead and send this decoy off on its own journey there. Oh, crud. I was moving too fast. So I lost my torpedo tube and my decoy there. noisemaker. Looks like the wreck of the Poti was. There we go. Okay, that was one of the surface contacts I was seeing, and the other was that merchant vessel. I'm going to go ahead and take it up to periscope depth and just do a quick sweep to make sure there's nobody up there. And then I'm going to start lobbing TLAMs. I am not going to worry about that merchant vessel at this point. I will take that as a bonus target if I can successfully launch all 10 Tomahawk Land Attack Missiles that I am tasked with throwing out here. I'm going to come to a dead stop, which will affect my towed array sonar operation, but I really think I am alone at this juncture. And I do believe this aircraft has expended its torpedo inventory. If not, well, things are going to get really interesting. Oh, crap. I wasn't paying attention and approached the surface a little. This is the ESM mast. It'll pick up any radar. Yeah, it looks like somebody saw me. Okay. Very quickly, I'm going to go ahead and start throwing Tomahawks out. Select tube. Going to fire, reload, fire, reload. Fire, reload. You can watch this thing go through the launch sequence. It actually does it very accurately. This is a solid rocket booster, which it kicks off the back, and then the turbojet engages and starts finding its way to target. I'm just hoping that anybody who comes hunting for me is going to pick up my decoy. And then I can slowly slink away. While these guys are flying in, I'm going to go ahead and show the periscope view, complete with night vision. Pan around. And you can actually kill a ship and it won't sink. There will be just enough buoyancy left on the surface that it just won't go down. I may get this guy later, but we'll just see. Okay. Here goes my first wave of missiles. They've turned in on the initial point and identified a target. First impact. Second on target. Follow the next wave in. I was supposed to deliver 10. I brought 12 on board in case there were any accidents. So I I am just going to dump all 12 because there's no point in carrying any more back to base because I've got to put in port if I can. But just to follow the missile in on its flight profile, once it hits, you see it's kind of off-center from the target point. It's just flying the bearing from my ship. Once it hits the initial point, the pre-programmed targeting takes over. The initial point is just before this island. And I could be dumping these a lot faster if I want to demonstrate this. Missile turns in, identifies its target. And that would, since these are single warhead and they're hitting directly what they're being aimed at, that would suggest these are TLAMs. The most commonly used version of TLAM has cluster munitions and is actually, it's like a unmanned small bomber. It can actually make multiple passes on target. So I'm going to show the launch from this perspective. Going to rinse and repeat. I think that decoy is doing its job because I haven't been harassed by any aircraft at this point. Although now that I pay attention, I could actually be targeting these things off the map down here and not actually losing time. I'm going to go ahead and wait for all 3 tubes to load though. All 3 current tubes after I ruined this one. Although from a real life safety perspective, probably should be glad that that was loaded with a decoy when it went, not a live torpedo. Would give the shore crews quite a hazardous job to handle. I don't have to reload these, so they get to come off at closer intervals basically. And I'm going to go ahead and set these up with offensive weaponry. But since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and follow all my missiles in. I think this is the last one in the group. 1, 2, 3. For some reason I'm driving backwards. So yeah, I've been really impressed with this game. As I have demonstrated, it can be very difficult. I've actually done much better shallow water evasion. And I would have outrun those other torpedoes had I not banged the bottom of my sub off the water like an idiot. So if you're, my recommendation, I don't know if this is tactically sound or anything, but if you're caught in shallow, if this game appeals to you and you buy it, it's $40 on Steam, which is kind of steep, especially because a lot of Killerfish fans, the Atlantic Fleet is still just $10 on the iPhone, and their games are usually not all that expensive. This is kind of a And so I can kind of understand some of the consternation, but there's so much more game here. But it's very complicated, and it takes a very specific type of, I almost want to say, dad gamer to really get into these type of things. So, but if this does appeal to you, and you find yourself in, you know, shallow waters trying to deal with torpedoes, my recommendation is stick to a middle depth, like 100, and just try to keep your evasion lateral. Don't try any of those vertical tricks, because that really requires letting the torpedo get much closer to you than you probably would want. And you'll be in situations where sometimes you just got to take the hit and, you know, rely on the fact that you're in a big boat with a small, being hit with a small torpedo. I don't know if they're really going to let me get away. I don't know if I'm going to get away at this stage, but that was pretty much all I really wanted to show on this mission. I'm going to reposition a bit and see if maybe I can get this guy in range for a harpoon shot so I can show the pop-up attack profile. But if I don't get there, this is just where this video is going to end, and thanks for watching. Okay, so I actually do get to finish this up with what I wanted to show, and that is the pop-up attack profile of the UGM-84 Harpoon missile. What this means, instead of flying straight at an enemy ship and striking at the keel line, it will, like the name suggests, pop up, arc over, and then come down. These are actually really important when attacking surface warships that have close-in weapon systems, as you set your first wave to pop up, and the guns will try to track them up, and they will probably blow them out of the sky. And while they're tracking those up, you usually follow up in the same salvo, so they're very tightly packed with one another. And while they're tracking up, they will miss the surface skimmer that's going to come and crash into the keel line. And so, just so I can show the whole launch sequence here, I have the attack profile set to pop up, wide angle. I'm not going to get into that just because it's not germane to the video. I'm going to set this thing at 8,000 kiloyards and just let it do its thing. And what you saw there was Tomahawk anti-ship missile, when it's launched from a sub, actually comes out in a buoyant canister, and it just kind of floats to the surface. At which point, you saw that booster drop off, like the Tomahawk does, and then the harpoon will just carry on. And it's pretty much the same weapon that is carried by primarily the F-18 Hornet, but also P-3 Orion and a bunch of other things in there. Once it gets to that 8,000 yards, the active seeker head comes on. Performs a pop-up, and it will actually swing out to try and confuse. But I think this thing lost its. I think it lost track. Yep. Well, that was supposed to be the. I do believe that was my last harpoon on board. Well, that was supposed to come back down and crash into the deck. Obviously, that did not happen. Oh, but it found something else it liked. We still get to see it strike. It found the burning wreck of the podium. Well, there's dead, and then there's dead. This thing just got smoked by 2 harpoons at the end of its life. So, thanks for watching, and I didn't quite go how I planned, but when it swung out to the left, that's actually a missile evasion, or a close-in weapon system evasion maneuver they're programmed for. Shooting at a merchant vessel, it really wasn't necessary. I could have set that in the sea skimmer mode, surface skimming mode, and it would have done just fine. So I'm going to huck a torpedo at this guy, and I'm not going to make you watch that. So once again, Game is Cold Waters by Killerfish Games. It's on Steam right now. If this looks like it's interesting to you, go for it. But it's a very niche game, and it's getting a lot of praise and airtime in the simulation community, which I'm not going to say I'm a big part of. I'm just going to keep my ear to the ground. And but us simmers, we're really weird guys. I think that if you learned Kerbal, you could learn this, but this game isn't for everybody. And I will do a full campaign playthrough of this thing eventually, but I've got to get back to Stellaris and I've got to see what's going on. So, again, thanks for watching.